Hello, welcome to the morning news. Our top story takes us to Ecuador's capital, Quito. President Rafael CORREA returned to the country and immediately announced measures to quell almost 7 days of protests by right-wing opposition members. He later announced the temporary suspension of inheritance and capital gains bills. These proposals caused upper middle class protesters to intense demonstrations. The rallies were low in number, but at times turned violent.
To avoid this group from provoking further violence, especially when we require an atmosphere of peace, exhilaration, and reflection to receive Pope Francis, I've decided to temporarily remove the law proposals of inheritance and capital gain taxes and open to national debate. Invite to debate at a national level, the laws in particular, or in general, about the type of country we desire. Hopefully, during this national dialogue, the National Assembly, unions, social organizations, academia, or youth in school participate in it. We want a debate, and not screaming or yelling. We want arguments, not manipulations. We want to listen and speak. We don't want insults or defamation, much less violence.
After almost a week in Brussels, where he opened the second EU-select meeting, CORREA returned to Quito. He had called on a pro-government rally. He addressed the crowd Monday and spoke against demonstrations against his bid to expand inheritance taxes against the rich, which historically have paid very little taxes or none at all. CORREA explained that his proposal would only affect 2% of Ecuadorians. The law was being debated in the National Assembly. The Vice Chairman of China's Central Military Commission, General Fan Chandong, ended an official visit to Cuba. His visit was aimed at consolidating ties between both countries. The high-level Chinese official said cooperation between both nations' armed forces would be deepened and that their governments would promote steady development of bilateral relations. Although Mexico's midterm elections have now passed, protests by teachers and other sectors of civil society continue. Our correspondent Clayton Khan was there. He tells us why protesters are against privatization reforms.
In recent days, the thousands of dissident teachers of the National Coordinator of Education Workers, or CNTE, have increased their actions against certain elements of the 2013 education reform that they say is an attack on their labor rights and free public education.
This new, more extensive wave, which started on June 1st, seeks to block a calendar of teacher evaluations that they seek to impose as a punitive measure against us teachers.
They seek to evaluate with only one standardized test: the people that live in the cities, the people that live in the countryside, children of marginalized areas, children of single mothers, and more.
Education analysts argue that the reform and its evaluations were hastily implemented, mostly due to pressure by the corporate sector that views the organized teachers as an impediment to economic interests.
It was approved quickly and secretly in the Senate and lower house, and at its roots, it's a reform that doesn't have legitimacy, and the little credibility that it has been lost due to the faltering by the authorities of public education.
This faltering refers to the official announcement to suspend indefinitely the teacher evaluations due to pressure by the organized teachers who threatened to boycott the June 7th midterm elections. However, on June 8th, the authorities changed their minds.
Not in any way did we say has been written the cancellation or termination of the teacher evaluation process. The evaluation process will continue during the rest of the president's term.
Although the teacher protests and actions have become common over the period since the approval of the structural reform, many say their struggle goes beyond specific labor gains and even public education.
We are not just a movement that knows how to organize marches and sit-ins such as this one, but we also have a proposal that is not just a new education model, but rather a new project for the country.
However, the authorities have been clear in their responses that they do not intend to negotiate with the dissident teachers or even other organized sectors of society that oppose what they say are divisive neoliberal policies. Clayton Khan, Telesur, Mexico City.
Also in Mexico, new evidence has surfaced in the case of the 43 forcibly disappeared Ayotizinapa students. A Guerrero state judge who has fled to the U.S. because the Mexican army has allegedly threatened him to death has refuted the Attorney General's version of events in Aguala. Ulises Bernabe told Proceso magazine the students had not been held in an Aguala jail before being turned over to drug gang members, as federal officials have said. He also said army officials and federal police officers were patrolling Aguala the night of the attack, suggesting they knew and possibly participated in the abduction of the students. We now go to Peru. The protests have continued across the country. Our correspondent Rael Mora has the story of the three separate rallies.
On Monday, Lima was the scenery for three separate national public workers' protests. There was a demonstration by 700 striking forensic doctors, another by administrative workers in the education sector who have been on strike since June 4th, and a march of primary and secondary school teachers from all provinces of Peru.
We are here for a real increase in salaries for thousands of teachers. Almost 90% of teachers have had their assets frozen. For 20 years there hasn't been a real increase in salaries, not in line with cost of living. The cost of living has increased, but the different governments in office, including this government in particular, have frozen our salaries.
The common issue in the dozens of labor conflicts taking place across the country is low salaries. Another demand of protest movements is for the president to implement policies which serve people, not private businesses, after several social conflicts arose around mining projects.
If this government has done something, it is unifying discontent. In other words, before there was the possibility of the government resolving what was happening sector by sector and problem by problem, since then, this has not been done. And today, they're all protesting, but now including one more factor, the issue that each day they believe less in the president and each day he has less time to resolve the problems.
The increasing number of protests coincides with the drop in popularity of President Ollanta Humala, with the latest poll by Datum released on Monday showing only 14% of citizens approve his performance. That is the president's lowest approval rating so far, and with only close to a year left in office, a great many social conflicts remain unresolved. Rael Mora, Telesur, Lima.
And now to our World News Roundup.
As time runs out for a deal to be reached between the EU, the IMF and Greece, the Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras said Athens was seeking a viable long-term deal with its lenders that would pull the country out of its economic crisis. He said the main factor blocking a deal was over how to restructure the country's debt, as the IMF insists on further austerity measures. Greece is believed to be running out of money and could be default on debt payments due by the end of June. This also could mean Greece's exit from the Eurozone. Tsipras called on a solution to the differences.
It's crucial that we strike a viable deal. It's not just crucial for the government, it's crucial for the country. It's crucial to end this vicious cycle and to not be forced to go to a deal which, in 6 months' time, will bring us back to this same point.
Just hours ago, Indonesia's Mount Sinabung in the North Sumatra province erupted, sending clouds of ash into the sky. The volcanic activity has forced about 3,000 people to flee their homes. Officials said the activity began Saturday, but has increased in the last few hours. In February 2014, eruption of the volcano caused 11 deaths and the evacuation of tens of thousands of residents. The Yemeni branch of Al-Qaeda has confirmed that one of its top leaders was killed in a U.S. drone strikes over the weekend. The militant has been identified as Nasser al-Wuhayshi. He was a former secretary of Osama bin Laden. Washington has not yet confirmed the kill of their involvement of the airstrike. The militia video confirming his death has been verified by Reuters.
We, as the jihadist Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, mourn to our Islamic Ummah, the Sheikh, the Prince, the leader, the ascetic Abu Basir Nasser bin Abdul Karim al-Wuhaisi. May God rest his soul, who has been killed by an American raid which targeted him with 2 other Mujahideen brothers.
Israel continues to justify its war crimes. A day after saying the killing of 4 boys playing football on the beach last summer by its forces was legitimate, the Israeli government has released a report saying their war on Gaza was in fact lawful and legitimate. The report has been released ahead of the United Nations publication of an investigation into the war crimes committed by Israel last year. The UN has said about 1,500 civilians, including 540 children, were killed by Israeli forces last year. The former Florida governor and son of George W. Bush and brother of George Bush, Jeb Bush, kicked off his presidential bid in Miami, Florida. He vowed to fix a dysfunctional Washington. He has also sought to distance himself from the Bush legacy. He is also seeking to appeal to Hispanics in the U.S. During his speech at Miami-Dade College, he briefly addressed the crowd in Spanish.
I will campaign as I would serve, going everywhere, speaking to everyone, keeping my word, facing the issues without flinching, and staying true to what I believe. I will take nothing and no one for granted. I will run with heart, and I will run to win.
Los Angeles City has joined San Francisco, Seattle, and Chicago as the only city that has so far approved $15 as the minimum wage. The measure recognizes that the current federal minimum wage of $7.25 is insufficient to live on. It is also a part of the country's 5th for 15 campaign. The mayor of Los Angeles, Eric Garcetti, signed into law the bill raising the minimum wage to $15 by 2020.
The fourth edition of the Copa America continues in Chile, where the hosting team met its toughest rival yet.
Chile had to come from behind twice in a very contested game against Mexico. The match ended 3-3. Both teams claimed to be satisfied with the result. Mexico has been criticized for not bringing their top players, and they are paying the price as they have only obtained 2 draws so far, complicating their chance to go on to the next phase of the tournament. Chile has clinched their pass to quarterfinals. Their next match will be against Bolivia. Mexico has a 3rd game pending against Ecuador.
Today's game had some of the best intensity so far. It was an electrifying game, and during the second half, Chile clearly generated 8 clear scoring opportunities.
History in the making, Bolivia clinched their first Copa America victory since 1997. They upset Ecuador 3-2. Bolivia has practically clinched their pass to the next phase of the Copa America, while leaving the Ecuadorian team on the brink of elimination. The Bolivian team assured the game in the first 45 minutes by racing to a 3-0 lead.
More on these on our website, telesurtv.net/English. Thank you for watching and have a good day.